everybody. Welcome back to our Power Hour. I am your host, Veronica Valentino, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Renee Rand. So today we have a powerful, honest, and important conversation lined up.
That's right. We're talking about something that still carries a lot of stigma, even though it's completely normal, healthy, and human.
If you didn't know, it is officially International Masturbation Month.
And before anybody gets awkward, let's be clear. This episode is about self-awareness, confidence, sexual wellness, mental health, body positivity, and removing shame from the conversations that we should be having a long time ago, not just now.
You know what? I just had to do a little giggle because I know that people get the wrong idea. So, exactly. Because you know what? When women understand their bodies, their pleasure, and their boundaries, that is power. And around here, that's what PowHER Hour is all about. So, so
So
let's start.
true.
Yep. So let's start at the beginning. International Masturbation Month. It actually started as a movement to normalize conversations around sexual health and self pleasure.
And masturbation is an effective and accessible self-care tool for managing menopause symptoms, offering relief for nearly 1 out of 5 women. Regular self-pleasuring improves sleep, quality sleep, boosts mood, reduces stress via, of course, endorphins, oxytocin releases, etc.,
Yeah.
while also addressing vaginal dryness and strengthening the pelvic floor muscles, with studies showing that orgasm and quality can improve post-menopause.
And honestly, it became a bigger conversation because for generations, people, especially women, were taught to feel embarrassed or ashamed about their own bodies. And meanwhile, studies continue to show that self pleasure can help reduce stress and, like Renee said, improve sleep, support, and all that. So, you know what? And Renee says, let's be real. How about it?
Well, let's get real because there's a lot to this conversation.
Yep,
So give me one
absolutely.
second here. All right. So we're
So while
having
Renee's
some.
pulling that up, I want to say, breaking the stigma, why do you think this topic still makes people uncomfortable? I think a lot of it comes from how people were raised. Conversations around sex and pleasure were often treated as taboo instead of educational, especially for women. There's often this double standard where confidence in your sexuality, it can still be judged unfairly. So I know, Renee, you have some really good information, and that's exactly why open conversations matter and shame thrives in silence. So I also think social media has changed things a little, and more about women are openly talking about wellness, therapy, confidence, relationships, and body positivity. So I know there's still a lot. So Renee, if you can join in giving us that fabulous information.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that we found when Veronica and I were doing home-based romance parties and teaching women about their bodies and their relationships and things they could do. It still was very apparent that a lot of people felt very embarrassed.
Yeah.
They particularly didn't want their friends, even their close friends and family, to know how they felt about certain things when it came to sex or masturbation or any of the things of their sexual relationship. And we would do a separate area to talk to people one-on-one afterwards. So pretend that we're just talking to you one-on-one today. So if you have any questions while we're going through this information today, just drop it into the chat and Veronica will post your questions so we can get those answered for you as well. And so let's talk about benefits of masturbation during menopause. Since this is really all about PowHER Hour and menopause, I want to start with that. So for symptom relief, a Kinsey Institute study, which is the Kinsey Institute studies sex and all areas of it, they found that for 46% of peri and postmenopausal women, masturbation eased the symptoms like stress, poor sleep, and many other symptoms as well. For vaginal health and dryness, sexual arousal increases the blood flow to the genitals, which can enhance natural lubrication and maintain tissue elasticity, which combats the dryness and the thinning or the atrophy that happens to the phrase you use it or lose it.
Yeah.
And mood and
That's
sleep
true.
enhancement. Yeah, it is true. And the release of endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine during orgasm acts as a natural relaxing and mood boosting agent, helping with anxiety and insomnia. And then, of course, maintaining your libido, because lack of libido is another side effect sometimes of menopause. Solo sexual activity can help maintain that sexual desire for more responsiveness when you're with your partner. And we're going to talk a little about masturbation and your partner as well today, and, you know, doing masturbation with your partner, because I think if you're in a relationship, that's a good way for you to find out, you know, how to pleasure each other and how to keep things a little bit more exciting.
You know
But
what?
yeah,
I also want to say there's still a lot of misinformation out there too. You know, it's which is why education is so important. So that's a great point that you brought up, Renee.
exactly. And experience and techniques, consistency and pleasure. Research shows that while sexual activity may decline and the ability to reach orgasm during masturbation remains steady at about 81% across all menopause stages. Well, that's because we know more about how our bodies respond than our partners. So our partners may not get those same cues as we're going through different things like the vaginal dryness and the lower libido, but we know what's still affecting our body and how to get the results. That's why masturbation can be such a good tool during that time. And
And
then,
you
of
know what
course,
else? And the sorry to interrupt, but I know we're working through this. One thing that surprised me when researching this episode is how often self-pleasure gets connected to stress relief and mental wellness. You know, I know it can release the endorphins and help people relax and even create a stronger sense of body awareness. And honestly, in today's world, people are stressed out. Burnout is real.
maxed out to the hilt. I was sharing that with you earlier today. Today was a very stressful day. So,
Absolutely.
so you know, and a lot of people don't either have the knowledge or don't ever experience that sort of self-pleasuring, so they don't know even where to start. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this,
let's talk for a minute about sex toys.
yeah.
Sex toys, or the use of sex toys such as a wand or a rabbit vibrator, probably is the most common, about 40 to 50% effective for maintaining pleasure for women. However, small things like a vibrating massager or what we used to call the silver bullet, those are very effective as well, because for clitoral stimulation, that can be something that's quick and easy, gets the job done, you know, creates the orgasm, releases the endorphins, and can make such a difference.
You know
But
what?
if what?
Speaking of which, that little silver bullet reminds me of a story. You know
Oh,
what?
share. Let's share.
um, so I gave a gift to an individual, you know, a woman, of course, for her and her husband. And it was our massage mitt with the little pink massage mitt with the little fingers on it, a little silver bullet, and a lotion. And this was just for a vibrating massage. I never took anything away from it. I didn't think that it was inappropriate, but they um they really got insulted. They were absolutely horrified.
I was
And I
actually with you that day that we discovered that. And you know, the crazy part about that is that that person let that bother them for what, 15 years?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
never brought it up, and yet it was so misunderstood about what, you know, the intention was. And I
yeah,
know when we used to travel, we used to hand out those goodies and toys and lotions and potions everywhere we went,
yes.
and probably really never ever thinking about that kind of psyche behind somebody
I
that
know.
definitely has that
And it
personal
was ab-
stigma.
and it was absolutely, you know, like this conversation is really about removing shame from healthy conversations, you know, around our bodies and mental health. I never meant anything horrible for that, but I can't believe that, that they kept us with it for 15 years. And another important point, everybody's comfort level is different. Where, you know what, we see this as everyday life. When we were in the adult industry doing, well, I'm not, let me correct that. When we were
No.
in our romance parties, we
Romance
did
parties.
romance parties for women and couples. And you know what? It was like nothing to us. And that's why we had that separate room, and we kept everything private, where they came in and they got to take home their goodies the night of the party while they still remembered what to do with it.
Absolutely. That was all part of the education process.
Yeah.
Was if we were having fun, and of course we did it with a lot of humor. We did a
Yes.
lot of education.
Right.
We just made it fun all the way around. It made people a lot more comfortable to be able to talk about things.
Yeah.
And I can remember we filmed a couple TV shows over those years, and the TV shows never ended up airing because none of the people that were on camera would sign the releases so that they could film the TV shows talking about sex. And it was very interesting how challenging that was for people.
You know,
And yeah, really. And yet at
I
the
still
same
have the
time,
blooper tape. I have the
yeah, oh
blooper
my
tape of
gosh,
one of those shows. And you know what? Nobody should ever feel pressured to talk about personal experiences or do anything they're uncomfortable with.
that's so true.
This episode isn't about shock value. It's about education, empowerment, confidence, and healthy communication.
Well, I think we should probably once a month bring up some area of sexual wellness to help our listeners understand how they can improve their relationships.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of our ladies are going through so many challenges at this time of their life, whether they're
Yeah.
perimenopause or postmenopause or right smack in the middle. So there's a lot of key considerations. Lots of times doctor recommendations, despite women talking to their doctors, and lots of times these are even female doctors that they're talking to. They may not respond to it being as much as of a health issue, and offer them things like they want to put them on hormones, or they want to put them on, and instead of just the simple natural ways of taking care of this on their own. And I part of me finds that pretty offensive, because I think that most women are smarter than that they can understand they don't have to go on another synthetic drug in order to fix something if they have the right information. And then, of course, regular self-exploration allows women to understand their changing bodies, which more often needs time, and for the stimulation and the lubrication to reach orgasm. Well, if you're in a busy household, where is your time going to be for you to be able to practice your this is National Masturbation Month. Okay, so we're kind of like halfway through the month almost, and now you only have a few weeks left. I'm going to make everybody a challenge to, at least learn a little bit more about your body and practice maybe this month, or try something new that you haven't done, because the fact is 90% of women actually do masturbate in some form or fashion.
Very interesting. I know we have questions coming in, and let's see the first one. Oh, nameless. Okay, let's see. Why do people feel more comfortable joking about sex than discussing actual pleasure, honestly?
Well, I think that goes back to the stigma, the way that you were raised. If you
Yeah.
were raised that talking about sex was not something that you did around the household, which most people didn't. Most parents didn't even explain the facts of life to their kids. So, now you're talking about learning about their bodies or learning about masturbation. And some kids aren't even talked about when they're getting their menstrual cycle. So, how scary is it for a kid to go to school one day and end up bleeding in the middle of school, and they know nothing about it? So, I mean, we are so backwards in education about so much of the basics that it's pretty scary. We should not be there in 2026.
No, not
We
at
really
all.
shouldn't.
So,
So,
I know you, we do have another question. Hold on one second.
okay.
Kate. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Wrong one. All right, here we go. Kate is asking, how much of sexual shame is inherited from family culture versus personal experience?
Probably 75%.
Mm,
That would be my guess in what I've read.
yeah,
Also from what we've experienced from the women that we've talked to over the years. I mean, this isn't just a temporary thing. We've been working with this for over 40 years.
right.
So this isn't new to the people that we've been working with over our lifetimes. And understanding that a personal experience absolutely can affect things. Any kind of sexual abuse, any kind of sexual inappropriateness, maybe in family or around friends, or maybe first time experiences, or later on in life, being in a situation that was uncomfortable for somebody, may change the way they feel about masturbating, or about their own bodies, or about orgasms in general. So, but I would say probably about 70% is the way they were raised, about 25% personal experiences.
So you were also talking, you began, started to begin to talk about sex toys, the usage of sex.
Right, right. So, you can choose something that's comfortable for you. It doesn't need to be something that's giant, mega, whatever. I don't know. Men have a tendency to think if you're bringing a sex toy into the bedroom, it's something that's 10 times bigger than them. Whereas,
Right.
like we said, the women's favorite that we used to sell was the $10 silver bullet.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not always that case. And now that you can buy them anywhere, it's
Mhm.
not like we did have a great market on the fact that we made it comfortable for people, but Walmart sells them. They're sold everywhere online. There's still parties out there that they have that you can get information and products from. But they're all, and I will have to say that with sex toys, operator error is very common
Oh my
because of
God.
the technology
Yes.
that happens now. I can remember a few years ago, one of the last parties that I did with a group of nurses, and in that group, this one lady had spent quite a bit of money. She wanted, one of everything type of a thing, and
Mm.
she had called me a few weeks later and said, I'm just not real happy. I can't get these toys to even turn on. And I had explained that on the USB port type toys that you plug in and recharge, that
Uh-huh.
you have to hold down the start button for 5 seconds in order for
Right.
them to turn on. Well, she didn't remember that. So she grabbed the toy, and she held it down, and then it worked just fine. But operator error is a big part of it. And then, of course, now the toys are not just a one on and off speed. Now they're also 49 speeds and 10 different vibrations and pulsating and rotating and up and down and everything you can think of, which is nowhere near the experience that you're going to have with your partner.
You know what?
So,
I remember getting phone calls in the middle of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, there's something wrong with my toy. I'm like, change the batteries or
yeah,
look at the buttons and stuff like that. All right, we
yeah.
have another question. All
Okay.
right, Lori's asking, does privacy make self pleasure feel more authentic or more isolating?
I think it's more authentic. I think when you have that time and you have privacy, you're not worried
Yeah.
about somebody opening the door and coming in. You're not worried about the kids knocking on the door. Somebody, turn your phone off, put it on silent, do something that makes a difference so that it doesn't affect you emotionally. I think and having the time. I mean, I know, I cuddle with my puppies at night, and so I mean, I have to take if I'm going to have a night experience, I have to put them in the other room because I can't do that. It makes me crazy. So, it's the mental side of everything that you're dealing with lots of times too. And then I was reading about, the different facts, and in 1953, now that's the year before I was born. Okay. Year before I was born. 1953, 62% of women admitted to masturbating. In 1979, that jumped up to 74%. 9 out of 10 women admit pleasuring themselves, and 2/3 admit to masturbating at least 3 times a week. So many sexologists believe that 90% rate has been consistent for decades, but now only because they're not as secretive about what they're doing are people
Right.
willing to agree that that's what's been going on.
Well, you know what?
And
I have to say, when I've listened to comedians talk about this, oh, okay, here you have a woman just going to masturbate. They turn down the lights, they put candles on, there's soft music, they have a glass of wine, and it's just like guys are like, bam, 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 thank you, ma'am. Like 10 seconds, I would say 3 to 10 seconds, and they're done.
Yep. Yep. And if you think about it, it's because in our relationships with our partners, we want more of that ambiance in that
Yeah.
relationship. It's not really necessary when we're by ourselves, but I mean, if you need it for that 30 seconds or whatever. But another question that had popped up was talking about is saliva okay for a lubricant? Absolutely not. That was one of the questions that I had just gotten on a text, and I said, no, absolutely not. Your most safe lubrication for sensations is to use a water-based personal
Yeah.
moisturizer or
Yeah.
lubricant, something that's safe. Remember, in saliva, you have all the bacteria in your mouth. One of the worst places in your body for bacteria is in your mouth. I know after having my heart valve replacement, I have to take 2,000 milligrams of antibiotics when I go to get my teeth cleaned, because when they work in your mouth, all that bacteria goes straight into your bloodstream. So no, 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 no. Pick something that's water-based and is going to work for you, but also is going to create the pleasure without having any of the challenges that might create problems for you in the future. And then another question that I was reading when I was going through research for this week's call was about people who have regular sex. Do they masturbate less? Well, it's kind of a myth. We've heard that maybe, but I don't think that just because they're having sex, they don't have a need for masturbation unless they happen to be having sex every day. And I think the older we get, the less likely we're having sex every day. I did talk to
I
a
would call that
customer.
dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Because well, and with everything going on life,
Yeah.
it changes things,
Right.
so you still need those endorphins. It
Mhm.
still benefits you to be having orgasms on a regular basis. So
Right.
masturbation is something that's still extremely important, and we
We
just have to open up our view about it. That's all there is.
All right, we have another question. So Barb is asking, why do some people feel emotionally different afterwards? Relaxed, guilty, energized, detached, affectionate.
Oh, well, I think because, when you're with your partner, solo sex, nobody's kissing, cuddling, taking out the trash, or bringing home a paycheck. So I think we have a different realm of emotion that's going on when we're talking about solo masturbation,
Right.
so, and I think it goes back to our emotional connection on how we were raised and how we feel about that, and
Right.
where our psyche takes us to that. Now there's 3 types of female orgasms, and while some might be liberally dished out and double digit as far as how they work in people's lives, the lines between orgasm fact and myth there are generally three kinds of climaxes that a woman can achieve: a
Mm,
clitoral orgasm, a vaginal orgasm, or a combination of both.
right.
And so, as you can imagine, a combination orgasm also is probably the most difficult to attain,
Mm-hmm.
unless you come along with a rabbit type vibrator where you have a shaft and a clitoral stimulator at the same time. It's rotating, vibrating, pulsating, whatever to go with it. And then, other than the clitoral, which is probably the most effective and fast, easiest way.
Right. Right. All right. So we have another question. Faye is asking, how would attitudes change if sex education discussed pleasure as an openly as risk?
Ooh, say that one again.
How would attitudes change if sex education discussed pleasure as openly as risk? I
Oh,
remember,
it
didn't
would
you use,
change
did
massive.
I mean you how you used to talk to your son years ago?
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
go ahead. I'll let you say. I'll let you share that
Yeah,
story.
we used to have the condom discussion, and I would his friends, I would call his friends' parents if they wanted, they knew what I did with the romance parties, and lots of times the parents would ask me if I would talk to their sons about it. And so we would have the conversation about condoms, and down and down, guys are going to tease each other. They don't want to wear a condom, blah blah blah. They bring it up as a form of birth control and not to take chances. They don't even bring up the fact sexually transmitted diseases and everything else that goes along with that. But having something available to let people know, the education takes the risk out of everything. If you talk about pleasure and you talk about timing and you talk about emotions and you talk about attitude, and you give teenagers and young adults facts instead of fiction, I think you have a much more liberated and yet safe situation for young adults growing into adults.
Right.
And masturbation is also a natural pain reliever. So for
Mm,
for people that feel like they're out of sorts, they're not feeling well, sometimes having that climax can relieve enough endorphins to make it good for your health, to the point that you're not feeling that pain. So
right.
they say that women that masturbate regularly have more relief from menstrual cramps. It improves their symptoms of PMS. There's less irritability and crankiness, fewer headaches. In addition, masturbation is one of the most effective self-medicating stress relievers. I'm all over that today. And like I said earlier, with less than 2 weeks left for this month, I think we all need to go out and practice. So, and then, I said that we were going to talk about partners too.
So we
If
have
your
a
part,
question here.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Bryn is asking, why is solo pleasure often treated differently from partnered pleasure morally?
Oh, okay. Well, I think because I think it's the way you were raised, any background. If you're self-pleasuring, um, it's like teenage boys and Playboy magazines. So I mean, they have the wrong idea
Excuse
connected
me.
in their brain about what's actually going on.
Right.
It's like today with the internet the way it is, people are watching porn. Okay, well, if that does it for you, that does it for you, but that's not really the healthiest way
Right.
to enjoy something that's going to release wonderful endorphins, because then you're going to relate it to what you're watching, to what you would
Yeah.
feel in a normal relationship, and that's not healthy.
Mm,
So I think we have to just kind of contemplate on what would be better healthy choices, and how we can give information that's going to make things a lot easier for ourselves, our kids as they grow up and move into adulthood, and how we can help them in that transition. And
yeah.
then going through menopause later on life, what a difference it makes. And you should have a lifetime of experiences of different things. And sex therapists will tell you that.
Yeah.
The chat about if you're with a partner and you're discuss is a great discussion topic, by the way, with your partner, is to talk
Yeah.
about masturbation, because then you're finding out what affects your partner and what pleasures your partner. I chat about the reasons why, beforehand, what
It's a good point
interests
that
you.
you bring up, because a lot of people, if you have that open communication and they don't want to talk about that, you know, maybe you're not, maybe if you're not married to this individual, maybe these are like red flags for partners to see that, well, if I can't openly talk about masturbation, then, like what else coming down the road is going to affect the relationship and whatnot. So Christine is asking, we have another question.
All right.
Can you self pleasure improve communication in relationships by helping people understand their own bodies better? Good question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you can have those open conversations while you're educating each other about, how your body is receptive to touch and sensations and feelings and emotions, and maybe even it's discussing things with your partner, like, to keep the spark alive. Grab a little card game. We used to have lovers cards, and we used to have date night cards and different things. If you're too shy to bring up subjects, maybe you need a game or some little romance cards to help you bring up those conversations, to be able to start talking about it. And then asking what their fantasy is,
Yeah.
and doing kind of, polling with your partner what
Right.
might feel great. And then a lot of people don't live in the same place as their partners. That was another segment that I was researching, was for people that live apart from their partners. Now we have Zoom and we have FaceTime and we have all this other stuff going on. Can you physically have a relationship with your partner if you're not in the same room? Well, of course you can.
Right. 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 So
It's different from years ago.
it's funny that you should mention partners and long distance relationships and whatnot, but there's also different cultures. So Marla is asking, why do some cultures frame desire as dangerous while others frame it as natural?
I think that is a great question, but I think that falls to the individual cultures
Right.
and what people have believed in for centuries about the way their culture is and the
Mm,
choices that they make. And even, if you go to different religions, they're going to divide it into a lot of different aspects as well. And what, the Bible says, and what this book says, and what this, says, and what their preacher tells them, and their, you know, rabbi tells them, and,
mhm,
all the people that affect their lives are going to affect their emotional side of that. So I don't think we have a lot of control over changing cultures,
mhm.
but I think we have a lot of control over choices that we make individually, and whether or not you choose to follow your body and just stay healthy. Do what's best for your body.
Right, right.
My feelings about synthetic drugs, and I'm
Yeah.
very homeopathic,
Yep.
and I believe that our God created our bodies to heal ourselves, and I
Mhm.
feel like there's a lot that we can do to help that along.
It's funny that, I mean, sexuality and having sex is all about, this is what the body was made to do and procreate and whatnot. And some people may really think that, like, this is a bad, this is personal. No one is saying about putting it out there and telling, a tell all, but it's just educating people that, what, this is normal. Jackie is asking, is the taboo actually about sexuality or about control, vulnerability, and self expression?
Oh, that's a great question too. And I think she has a real good sense of what some situations may lead in some
Mhm.
relationships. I think people have used that for for definite control issues in some relationships. I think they've used it for good and bad sides
Mm,
of things that are happening in their lives. And again, a lot of that goes back to how they were raised, about thinking about, sex and their relationships and their marriages. So I think that can be a wide variety of
yeah.
emotions and things with that.
We got a lot of questions coming in here.
Well, we kind of knew that was going to happen today when we brought up
Yeah, yeah.
sex. Yeah.
We got another one. So, Felicia is asking, how has the internet culture changed expectations around intimacy and arousal?
I think it's been my personal opinion is it's made it more challenging
Right.
and difficult for people because there's too much bad stuff out there
Yeah.
compared to good information. And so I think because it's so accessible, a lot of the stuff that's not factual
Right.
and more along the fantasy, that I think it creates some more challenges. So I think we have to pick and choose the good and the bad. I think there are good sources and I think there are challenging sources.
Right.
So
Right.
I think we just need to maybe do some scrutinizing about what we're going to choose to watch, and then follow up on what kind of studies that are out there. There's tons of studies. There's
Right.
tons of things that have been researched, and then talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about. That could help as well.
Well, okay. So, another question Donna is asking, why are conversations about emotional intimacy often harder than conversations about physical acts?
I think because people would rather do it than talk about it.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, if cut and dry,
Yeah.
I don't think people are naturally prone to communicating their feelings about their body and about their sensations when it comes to sex and
Mm-hmm.
masturbation. I think, that they have to kind of start somewhere. And, somebody, a couple may need a sex therapist. They
Right.
may need to get some professional help or get a sex coach. And that's become very, very helpful in keeping relationships healthy.
Mm,
And if you agree, don't mix up certain things in the relationship. And if you're honest about your boundaries, because boundaries are another part, you need to communicate your boundaries, what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. But if you're shy, like I said, starting with a game or starting with something that's fun to break the ice and talk about more things, that may be a good place to start. Or, even a book.
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great books out there along the way. We used to tell women, if you want to learn how to do different things with your partner, pick out good selections we had a book called Tickle is Pickle,
Yeah,
you know?
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, great way to, introduce, fellatio into the relationship and,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
learn how to gaze into each other's eyes. That's another thing people don't do anymore, is they don't look at each other and really, if you spend 5 minutes looking at your partner in each other's
Yeah.
eyes, really paying attention to, you know, how you were feeling by looking at each other and talking to each other, and all
Mm,
that could make a big difference, really could. And maybe just, the powerful aphrodisiac
yeah.
of that emotional connection can make such a big difference, especially if you're talking about, doing things with your partner. So, and
Yep.
it's going to help every brain connection. It's going to help the lymphatic glands. It's going to help your eye contact, your physical
Yeah.
touch, um, laughter. Laughter is the
Mhm.
best medicine, among other things. So there's so many things that can increase your hormones and decrease stress at the same time.
Because people, really confuse education with promiscuity. A lot of us were taught shame before we were taught facts, and women's pleasure still isn't discussed openly enough. And people are uncomfortable talking honestly about their bodies, and that's exactly why conversations like this really matters. We have one last question that came in to us. Holly is asking, how does language affect comfort? Masturbation can sound clinical to some people. Self-pleasure sounds softer. Slang can make it comedic.
So true, and it's another little thing that popped up when I was doing some research was talking about communicating with your partner or using, dirty talk. I have
Yeah.
never been a dirty talk person.
No.
Does nothing for me. Okay. Absolutely nothing, but for some people, it's a part of a description or a fantasy or a bit of vocalizing that sets them off or turns up the heat. So I think it's different for everybody. I think
I
that
feel, you know what?
communication level.
I feel like somewhere right now somebody's clutching their pearls listening to this episode. And somebody else has turned the volume up louder. So I know,
Well,
at the end of the day, this conversation is bigger than one topic. It's about confidence, education, wellness, communication, and removing unnecessary shame. Because you know what? Empowered women deserve honest conversations. Renee, any last thoughts?
yes, I promised last week that we were going to do something special today. So what I want to do is I want to leave this open. We're going to share this online. And anyone that leaves a comment this week or was on the call today or leaves a comment before next week, we're going to draw a winner for a fun little romance package that we're going
Oh,
to mail out
sweet.
to them. So we'll do something fun and appropriate for the topic of the week
Awesome.
and send that out. So if you're watching this, please share everywhere, and make a comment. And we will put all those comments in for a drawing. And then when we pick out your name, just make sure that when we contact you, you get back to us so we get your address to
Yes.
send you your package. But it was
Yes.
fun today.
Yeah, definitely share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you know what? Renee and I are always going to create space for those conversations here on Power Hour. We want to thank you for spending time with us today. If this episode really sparked a thought, taught you something new, or made you feel seen, share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Absolutely.
And again,
Absolutely.
don't forget to subscribe, follow, and join us next time for another powerful conversation. We'll see you next time on Power Hour. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye.